Hey everybody, I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk about having a tribe, the warrior mindset, and how you should approach training. So I'm going to start first of all with having a tribe. I see all these big organizations out there, and some of them are pretty legit organizations, and are usually full of pretty legit individuals. So when I say legit individuals, I'm not talking about um, like a military organization. I'm talking about a militia organization. One of the big things that I've noticed is there's only a few of them that are actually pretty good. Um, Oath keepers are usually full of pretty legit individuals, and then the militias. When I say the militias, I mean the state militias, like Michigan militia, Indiana militia, Ohio militia, where it's an armed force that regularly trains for a end of the world scenario. Those individuals are pretty legit operators, and they usually come pretty hot and heavy. So, like for instance, Michigan militia, I know that they have some pretty heavy hardware and they got some pretty heavy hitters with them. Whether they still do that or not, or still have those individuals, I don't know. I know Oath Keepers back in the day was pretty legit. Um, there was sometimes like Oath Keepers were spoke in hushed tones. It was. It's kind of like speaking about Rangers in hushed tones until you meet one and you find out they're like really, really chill guys. And they're really good at their jobs, so don't get me wrong about that. But they're really chill guys. Same thing with Special Forces, Green Berets, Delta Force guys. Delta Force guys will look at you in a bar when you say, "Are you Delta?" They're like, "No, we're just trying to have a good time." So they're like straight up legit chill guys, and different things like that. So they're just built differently. To be that kind of individual takes a whole different individual. I would like to believe someday, if the opportunity ever came to me, that I would go that route, um, but I'm not really sure whether or not I would go that route. So I've been in talks with trying to get back with the National Guard and everything like that. So I had two options. One to go to the Michigan Army National Guard. I can enter through Michigan Army National Guard possibly. Still waiting on the congressional um, intervention and everything from Congressman Molinar. And then, obviously, I'll know what I need to do from there to be able to get back in. Hopefully, I'm not too old to where they have to waiver me for age to possibly one day get a group. But I was talking to Indiana, and that'd be pretty much one I would want to go to. The 20th Special Forces Group. They're pretty legit guys down there, and I want to end up in an organization where my skills can be utilized, but also I know that the other people around me are also professionals. So coming back to having a tribe and different things like that, I would take the 10 guys that the other 9 guys that I was with in Afghanistan from second platoon, second squad, and when I say 10 guys, there's only 8 of us with our medic actually in the squad. But I talk about my platoon sergeant and I talk about my PL at that time who retired as a captain, Captain Payne. Ended up being our company XO afterwards. Pretty legit, stellar guy, has a Ranger tab. And then, of course, my platoon sergeant is now a command sergeant major of a brigade out in Fort Carson. So, Captain Payne utilizes his skills in other ways, his knowledge and different things like that, and that's awesome. Good for him. He's got a beautiful family. But I would take those 10 individuals that I served with any day over 1,000 of these other individuals on the outside. And the reason why is that 10 individual, those 8 individuals from my squad, we had such a cohesive, well-oiled machine that worked so much in sync, we already knew what to do. The moment we take fire, our saw gunner would hit the ground, and Meadows would be over his back, pulling the law off, and would fire that puppy. As soon as he got it clear, our saw gunner would know that, and then they would pick up, because about that point in time, what's happened is there's sufficient suppressive fire has been laid down, so the rest of the squad could get to cover and now begin to engage whatever position that was firing at them in the first place, and now they can bounce to the next position. It just worked out perfectly. We were very fortunate. I would say we saw north of 20 different troops and contacts moments as a platoon, or even as just a squad, I should say. But anyways, so neither here nor there. And I would take those over Michigan Militia, Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, Michigan Home Guards, these state defense forces, and different things like that. Because of the mindset that we had was to move forward, and if it works better a different way, we're going to do that. We're going to try a different way. And sometimes we did things on the fly, and we were able to adapt and overcome and even try things that we weren't even trained on and methods that we weren't even trained on, because that might be the opportunity that gives us the upper hand and wins us the day. We weren't content with just sitting our butts there. We were being okay with flexing. We were okay to throw the book out the window and just, you know, fly by the seat of our pants for a little bit. And that's 100% not something that I think a lot of people understood. And maybe according to doctrine and subordination rules and stuff like that, maybe that's not the best way to do it, because that's not how we're trained to do it. We're not trained to do that kind of stuff, but it worked and we lived, and that's why we're here. So purely out of that aspect, I thought the deployment was awesome. Other individuals did not agree. There was many times throughout the deployment that I ran into individuals that were not happy about what 2nd Platoon, 2nd Squad did. In particular, it's a funny story. I was in chow hall with my squad, the entirety of, and we're standing in chow, in line in chow. We were from Delta Company. And this guy from Charlie Company comes up and he says, "Oh yeah, you hear about those pieces of crap up there in Delta Company?" And our squad leader, Sergeant Bourbon, our fearless leader, turned around and said, "Oh no, what'd you hear?" And he says, "Yeah, I heard they've been faking contacts and just shooting at the trees and everything like that." And we weren't. We were legitimately getting shot at, and anybody that got shot at before would know we were legitimately getting shot at. And Sergeant Bourbon's like, "Oh man, that's wild." And he kind of went on for a little bit. He goes, "Yeah, you know who we're from?" And the guy's like, "No." He goes, "Delta Company." And the guy's face turned completely white, and he's all like, "Oh," because there's stripes all over the place. And I think at that time, the lowest ranked individual was a PFC. So it was kind of like a funny moment, because we're looking at the guy like, "Yeah, you're kind of an idiot. You said that definitely to the wrong person." And anybody that knew Sergeant Bourbon at the time knows that Sergeant Bourbon is not the guy that you talk crap about his squad to. He's just not that guy. Don't talk about bad about the company even, because we were highly cohesive element, and we liked it that way. Even some of us that were in the element didn't get along with other people within the element, because we were so set in just kind of how we did things, and that was completely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It takes all kinds. It takes different individuals to do different things. It takes different mindsets, and if you don't have a healthy mix of everybody, you're going to have one way to do it, and then you're going to die. So, yes, cohesion was important, but at the same time, too, performance and utilizing everything we've been trained on and worked on in combat was not hard to do, because we all spoke the same language. It was like we didn't even have to do a lot of drilling. It was just known. We did most of the drilling via mouth and in our heads. So we were prepared mentally to do so. And there was no question that whatever we had to do, we were going to do it for each other. It had nothing to do with God or country or family. It was all about each other, 100%. What we did in Afghanistan, we did for each other, and it was awesome. You know, we had a pretty good time. So talking about that too. But one of the reasons for that is the inability and the lack of motivation to change or evolve with the changing times and tactics and different things like that. Like, if you'd have talked to me about this stuff about 10, 11 years ago, right when I got out of the military, I would have talked about night vision, but I also, at the time, the night vision was pretty crap. We were running around with the PBS 7 Bravos, and I think that everybody that's used those knows that driving with them is just short of impossible, especially in blackout conditions on a moonless night, when you're not able to use or utilize even blackout lights, or even the blackout lights suck. Because, no offense to anybody that thinks so, they're like, military grade, it's going to be awesome. No, it's usually crap. Give me a civilian one any day of the week and we're good to go. There's a lot of things military grade that I wouldn't buy. I would not do anything for. Even one of those MATVs, they're awesome. They're fantastic vehicles. They get places. But take it from a guy that's filled a radiator halfway up with mud. They do not do well when they suck in dust, as do most vehicles when they suck in dust. But they produce a lot of dust when they're rolling over dusty locations, and if you suddenly stop, it will suck most of that dust into the radiator, and it will overheat that system. The blackout lights on them sucked. The only good thing about those trucks, I think, was the thermal cams, which I loved driving with that because I can actually see the road. And some people are like, with thermal, yes, absolutely. I was literally driving a vehicle with thermal because it was better than using night vision. So if you'd asked me about 10 years ago, I'd have said, nope, night vision is crap, use your eyes. But now, we're living in the world that we live in, where things are very rarely, are you ever in a situation where there is no type of ambient light, whether or unless you're like inside of a structure and different things like that, because the world is so populated now. There's always lights, so there is some kind of ambient light, I believe, at all times in the world, even if it's low ambient light. Still better than trying to look through bulletproof glass out onto a roadway in the middle of the night that you can't see. That hasn't been cleared yet because nobody's even driven down it before. So it's a little sketch. So if you'd asked me then, yeah, no night vision. But if you ask me now, night vision. There's a lot of things that you need to be able to move on in this world, or move on tactically and still be tactically effective. Like 100%, a lot of those guys from World War II were legit. They made things happen and different things like that. But if you took those same guys with that same equipment from World War II, what they were trained on, what they're comfortable with, and then put them into the situations that we work with now, they would absolutely be eaten alive, because they don't have the equipment, they don't have the knowledge on using the equipment. They also, even if they were informed, it's not real to them because they aren't utilizing it themselves. So you tread more carefully, even in warfare today. I mean, for anybody that thinks that that's not the case, look at the Taliban. They waited 20 years. 20 years they fought us. And it didn't take but 2 days for them to take the country back. They just waited. It's all about tactics and waiting games and different things like that. But there is a point where you have to turn around and go, you know what, I can't just sit around and wait, because the day will be lost. Especially when your only castle is taken and now you have nowhere to go. If you have nowhere to go, you will be defeated. So what I've noticed about some of these newer elements, or these more recent, I should say self-proclaimed militias, because there are those, like the Michigan militia, some of the different elements similar to Michigan militia out there are led by legitimate military trained individuals. I know here in the Michigan militia that some of their officers are legit retired officers and NCOs and different things like that. But there are other elements where the highest ranked, and there's nothing wrong with rank, it has nothing to do with that, the highest ranked individual made it to like an E5, and they're like gods among men walking around these elements, and I don't believe in that at all. I don't subscribe to that, and I think that that's unhealthy. To look at one individual and think that this guy is going to lead the masses to victory because he went into combat. That's not how that works. You have to evolve. You have to not just train differently. It's not just about the willingness to train differently and try new things and try different methods. It's also about the willingness to learn differently. So reading books from some of the greatest people out there to ever hold rank. I love General Mattis's book. There's another one Sergeant Major Schroeder wrote. Dempsey wrote one. There's a couple of them out there. Other individuals wrote, and they're just phenomenal books to read on leadership and how to utilize the things that you've learned over your years and pass that down to the people underneath you. Sergeant Major Witt was a great Sergeant Major from the guys that I know about that were there with him after. I believe he was a platoon sergeant on our deployment to Afghanistan. He ended up retiring. He exited the military with his retirement papers as the, at that time, Command Sergeant Major of the 2nd Battalion of the 502nd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team of the 101st Airborne. So I look up to those individuals and I want to be mentored by them. So having a mentor is important, and having somebody that's willing to call out your bullshit. So if you don't have somebody with the skills and the knowledge over top of you that's willing to call out your bullshit, you're already off to a bad start. So that's why it's important to have an instructor. I don't believe submitting under somebody as in like a day-to-day life thing. I think that most people take it to one extreme or the other. As in, I'm not going to listen to anybody, or I'm going to worship this individual so much that I'm going to allow them to make interpersonal decisions for me. Like the individual that I marry. It seems a little out there. That's not really anybody's business. Whether I have a kid or not, what kind of job I take, that's not for them to decide for you because you're not them. So I think that stuff's a little extreme, and the reason I say that is because I went through different church programs and different things like that. Um, One of them I went through was with a church here in Michigan, where a month into it, I realized really, really quick that for me, this wasn't going to work out, and it felt more like a brainwashing um, session that we're required to pay for. I should say session, class. That's like an entire fall and winter semester of college that we're required to pay for out of our own pocket, on top of paying rent, which they saw as responsibility, but there was almost zero time for um, that work-life balance, if you will. Having that moment to go, you know what, I need to breathe. And the only way you got that time was if you consorted or socialized with the other individuals that were part of this program. So it felt like to me, and it looked like to me, and the more I did psychological research on it and everything like that, on the types of programs that was, it is a brainwashing program. Now, the main flaw that I saw during that program was when you're in a relationship with Christ, you should be pursuing being like Christ. In that program, it was pursuing to be like another individual. So, the Ten Commandments say, "Thou shalt have no other gods." They didn't want to call them gods; they called them prophets. Um, and we identify them as a prophet and their prophetic nature, and they kept using that word, but it really wasn't like that. There was not the same walking the walk as they were talking the talks. There was a lot of things that contradicted. It's good for you. It's good for me, but not for thee. So, yeah, if you're going to have a mentor, please have somebody that actually does what they say, and doesn't tell you you don't do this and then do it themselves. Unless, of course, there's different situations that come into play with that. Like, for instance, you've got team leaders that'll tell privates, do not go out there and grab that guy if we take fire and he goes down. But you want to bet what they're going to do. The moment that guy goes down in a real firefight, they're going to run out there and drag him back. But it's not because of a thing of like, it's bad, it's good for me, but bad for thee, but more or less in a mindset of, you make sure this is what the mentorship's about. This is how they are. The mindset of, I can't ask you to do something and put your life at risk when I'm not willing to ask me, or not willing to do it myself and put my life at risk. So if you are going to be a leader in those types of things, or put together an organization like that, or even be in leadership in the tribe, be fully prepared to do it in the case of somebody's life being at risk. If you're not the first one to jump up when somebody's got to take one for the team, then you do not deserve to be in leadership. And that's just kind of how I feel about that. So being a part of a tribe training mindset. So be part of a tribe that is conducive to what you're attempting to accomplish, but also be part of a tribe that isn't going to take, and not put anything back. If you have a tribe full of people that do a lot of the consuming, but don't do any of the work to provide, then you're just screwing yourself over. You know, you're working for free and you're paying for them as well. So you're just going to keep losing. Because when it comes down to it, what's going to happen is you're going to be the only one doing the things, and it's all to keep them alive. And they're going to be fat and happy, and it's easy to do because they aren't doing the work and they're not putting the effort in, so it doesn't hurt them any. So yeah, they'll just keep taking. It's kind of like having a bunch of grown-up kids. And I see that in a lot of elements out there, and I won't name them all because I don't want to offend people. But yeah, so if you're going to have a tribe, make sure it's a good one. Training mindset is be willing and open to learn new things, and not just train on new things, but actually to learn new things. A good instructor is always a teacher. But on the flip side of that too, do not allow yourself, just because you're a leader, and there's that mindset of, I have to starve so my soldiers can eat. No, you need to eat sometimes too. That doesn't mean starve so your soldiers can eat. Just make sure they eat first. That's the important thing. Make sure there's enough for everyone, but make sure they eat first. Because it ain't going to do a whole group of Indians a lot of good if the chief dies. Because then who's in charge? They're all going to fight amongst each other. So if you're going to be a leader, you need to identify that as important too. You do need to take care of yourself. It is important. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you damn sure can't take care of them. There's no way you're telling some guy to get his, or no, telling somebody to change his socks when you don't do it yourself, and your feet are about to be rotted off your body because you have trench foot like a mother. So, or jungle rot. So it's preach, practice what you preach, walk what you talk. So the training mindset goes into that one as well. Be courteous of other individuals, especially if somebody else puts out the time and the effort to set up the range. Like for some of us, we will take payments on at the time of service, right? So there's not a prepay option. I'm actually doing a thing where I'm going to start having a prepay option where you have to put a deposit down, and if you don't show up or you cancel on me within a certain window before that range, I keep your deposit. You don't, you don't get to utilize that or get that money back, and you won't because you signed the contract and everything like that. And the reason being is so many people are wasting my time. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to set up events for free, even where it calls for 6 to 10 individuals, and let's say, just for round numbers here, it says for 10 individuals and maybe 4 show up. I had one where I set up an event. It was a free event. I had 30, but roughly about 30 individuals that are confirmed. 5, and I was one of the 5, were there at the event. And I had done extensive amount of work and different things like that to make this training event happen. Which I, of course, then just went, okay, that's fine, but I'm just going to roll this back, and we're no longer going to utilize that area that I had done the work on for this event anymore. So just changed it, and it's okay, and different things like that. So as far as the warrior mindset is concerned, one of the big things that I saw within the warrior mindset is do not be hoping for a glorious death. There is no glory in dying. Now, you can do something glorious while dying. Like, if the reason you're dead is because you gave your life for your friends, yeah, that's glorious. But nobody wants you dead. We would rather you be alive here than dead. Because everybody's like, it's so sad their life was snatched away, and they act like the real sorrow is for that individual that they aren't here anymore. But the real sorrow is for all the individuals they left behind. So whether that be kids, wives, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, they're an aunt or an uncle, they're somebody's niece, nephew, somebody's grandkid. It's really hard to try to take yourself out of that point where you don't want to run. You don't want to have a mindset where you're willing to run through walls for the Medal of Honor. If your mindset is to get in the military and do things to get medals, then you're in the wrong line of work. If your mindset is to be there for self-glorification, you will not be cohesive. If your mindset is, I'm better than them, with no real facts to back that up, or being fully informed, then you're in the wrong line of work. The same thing in fire departments, the same thing in EMS, the same thing in law enforcement, or really any field you could possibly work in that requires you to possibly rely on another individual to conduct your duties. Take that right out of your head. If you're a medal chaser, get out of here. Nobody wants you around. I know that everything that I do and am going to do has nothing to do with medals. That's not true. I'm working on something right now because we felt like from the deployment that justice and proper recognition was not given to some individuals that were on that deployment. So that is a big thing too. Yes, justice should be served, and I believe that justice delayed is justice denied. I subscribe to that highly. So some people should get the Medal of Honor, some people should get the Silver Star, some should get Distinguished Service Crosses. There are Bronze Stars of Dower that are definitely flipping due at minimum. I've even checked the criteria on some of the narratives. There's strong criteria for even into Silver Stars, the Distinguished Service Crosses, and even Medals of Honor as well. Support upgrades to those awards or new awards entirely, including those awards. Because some people didn't get recognized even though they did big, great things. Of course, what they didn't do it for the recognition, but at the end of the day, what was on the line, what was being risked, told me that these individuals do deserve some recognition. And so going after that, awesome. It's kind of, I think for me personally, if somebody were to speak to me about coming after a medal or something like that, which I didn't do anything glorious, I was just doing my job, I would feel incredibly uncomfortable with being asked to write the citation for myself. I couldn't do that. You know, I'm not going to give it its just due because it's just doing what I have to do. It's kind of like people thanking me for my service and asking me, or talking about Afghanistan, oh, that must have been so hard. Well, no, it wasn't that hard because I was there. Did it suck? Absolutely. Was there parts of it that were hard? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it was that hard because now that I'm through it and I've gone through other things in my life, I realize, well, yes, that was hard, but it really wasn't as hard as a lot of people believe it to be, if that makes any sense. So yeah, find a good tribe. Be willing and open to not just train differently, but learn. And don't be a medal chaser. And you get those things down, and you'll be highly effective as a person that's going into tactics and trying to be a tactician, or as the loose term operator. Then if you're able to do those kind of things and be highly cohesive and willing to learn and willing to be trustworthy and do what you say you're going to do, you'll do just fine. But yeah, so it is very important to have all those things to do that. And the term operator is just so loosely, because I've seen flat range operators all day long. But the real guys are the guys that get out there to do the ranges. And I think a lot of people, they get the mindset of it needs to look pretty. It does not have to look pretty. If it looks stupid and it works, it's not stupid, right? There's a lot of different ways that different individuals do things that I look at and like, well, that's just dumb. But the results are incredible. They get the results they're looking for, it works for them, and that's what should be important. It's not about how it looks, it should be the end result, how it ends up. You don't have to look good, it won't matter, because if the enemy's dead, then that's all that counts. If the mission is achieved, if you have completed the mission, you conducted it, and you mitigated all the risk, and were able to complete the mission within the commander's intent, then yeah, you're good to go. So, yep, that's pretty much all I had, guys. Any questions, comments, anything you want to say, leave it in the comments. Shoot me a message if you have any questions about any upcoming classes. Just a quick update too, we just got 2 vehicles. I had a video update on it earlier today that I posted. So we just got 2 vehicles, so we're going to move into the driving convoy portion, medevac, vehicle operations, and nighttime driving, and then communications apparatuses that will move into the vehicles and different things like that, and different types of systems that you can put in the vehicles, such as tablets, computers that work off of Wi-Fi, or mobile networking, and different systems like that. There's a lot of electronic systems that are out there that are pretty good for navigating, mapping, terrain, routes, locations, different things like that, when they're married properly with GPSs, and or on a mobile network, which of course has GPS built right in. So, but yeah, leave a comment, guys. Leave a like. Let me know what you think. Tell me what other kind of videos you guys would like to see. What questions do you have? What kind of things do you want answered? And I'll be going through them personally, and I'll be more than happy to answer most of your questions. So, till then, strike force, guys. Thanks for watching.